You're a fan of raw dairy.
Yeah.
You mentioned starting the day with goat milk. But let's really get into the details here. We have the A1 versus A2, pasteurization, which you've touched on, but let's go deeper into that. Homogenization, different animals. We got the sheep milk, goat milk, cow milk. For somebody that's just been very conventional when it comes to dairy and having, say, a homogenized, pasteurized A1 cow dairy, let's walk through the different steps here and how they can upgrade.
Yeah, so A1 versus A2 refers to a variant of casein, which is a milk protein. And there's a good amount of research pointing to the fact that A1 casein is probably more immunologically problematic for humans than A2. If you're talking about cows, Jersey cows and Guernsey cows are all A2, but most other cows are going to be some mixture of A1 and A2. So when I'm drinking cow's milk, I want an A2 cow's milk because there's two genes, right? So A2 means both genes. The cow is homozygous for the A2 gene coding for the casein variant. All goat milk, all sheep milk, all bison milk is all A2. Anything but cow's milk is all A2. So you can shortcut it by drinking a milk that's not cow, or you can find Jersey or Guernsey, or now there are more milks that say A2. And I think humans will tolerate A2 milk better than A1. What I drank growing up was probably A1 skim, pasteurized, homogenized milk. Dairy fat is super healthy for humans. It's so incredibly healthy for humans. There's a compound in dairy fat called C15 and C17. These are odd chain fatty acids. And recently I read a study showing that levels of C15, which is called pentadecanoic acid, correlate with protection from lipid peroxide-induced programmed cell death, which is called ferroptosis. So people may have heard the term apoptosis, but ferroptosis is what happens when you have too much oxidative stress in your body related to too many polyunsaturated fatty acids, harkening back to our previous conversation. One of the challenges with polyunsaturated fatty acids is their oxidative liability, and it can lead to programmed cell death, which is called ferroptosis. Not good. That's not a good thing. C15 protects against that, pentadecanoic acid. So a fat found in full-fat dairy, something that is widely criticized and said to cause heart disease, actually protects against lipid peroxide-induced cell death in humans. Levels of C15 in the human body directly correlate strongly to dairy consumption of full-fat dairy. So if you're thinking skim versus 2% versus whole milk, you want whole milk. You want A2 milk. And then I would argue you want raw milk. Now, every raw food has a risk of contamination. I'm sure you guys all know someone who's gotten sick from sushi or oysters. Most people every year, the majority of people, or I should say, the largest amount of people who get foodborne illness every year get it from, do you know?
I know it's a type of green, maybe spinach.
Yeah, it's spinach. It's like spinach and other greens. It's not any animal food. So raw plant foods are what cause the most food poisoning in humans every year. My point is just that all raw food has a chance of contamination. Sushi, oysters, meat, carpaccio, whatever. All of it has a risk of contamination. The quality with which your farmer makes his or her raw milk is everything. And so you want to get it from a farmer that you trust, that is raising cows in a clean way, that is cleaning the udders, and is doing it in a sanitary way. Pasteurized milk also can become contaminated with E. coli and Salmonella and Campylobacter. One of the largest outbreaks ever in our history in America was 1986. I believe thousands and thousands of people were poisoned from Salmonella in pasteurized milk. We never hear about that. People died from pasteurized milk in 1986 because when you pasteurize milk, you kill everything in that milk. A raw milk, I would argue, is in a lot of ways safer than pasteurized milk because you have all of the naturally occurring flora in the raw milk to outcompete any Listeria, any E. coli, any Campylobacter, any Salmonella. Now, every once in a while, raw milk does get contaminated and people get sick. Yes, it has to do with the quality of the production and how clean it is. But people get sick from sushi and spinach and everything. We talked about this, right? If you're getting it from someone that's doing it well, chances are it's pretty darn safe. If you want to be absolutely sure you're never going to get sick from foodborne illness, then you have to cook everything well done. You have to cook. You can't eat salad. You can never go to sushi, right? Don't ever eat anything undercooked. It just depends how you want to live. And so why would we eat raw milk in the first place, or drink in this case? There's a lot of interesting data that never gets brought up when people are vilifying raw milk around the unique immunologic effects of raw milk. I mean, there's been studies, the Gabriella study, many other studies in children growing up on or off farms that show that if they drink raw milk, they have lower rates of asthma, eczema, and allergy. Those are all the things that I suffered from as a kid. I wish I had raw milk when I was a child, but instead I got pasteurized A1 skim milk. Thanks, mom and dad. And I had eczema, asthma, and allergies. And ultimately, the severity of my eczema was what drove me to do a carnivore diet. That was the beginning of my story. But I think that there are unique benefits to raw milk in humans. And again, it's an individual decision that every parent must make for themselves, for their children. There's always a risk of contamination. You just have to make sure that you find it from a good producer that you trust. I think you should drink raw milk or raw cheese or raw butter if you're doing dairy. And a lot of people, at least anecdotally, find benefits to it. I certainly feel better with raw milk in my diet. I'm still a little bit sensitive to lactose. I can't do too much, and I don't think raw milk fixes lactose intolerance. But a lot of people do tolerate raw milk better than they tolerate pasteurized milk. A lot of people have issues with pasteurized milk, and they can drink raw milk. Getting enough calcium in your diet to balance phosphorus, it's a very positive thing for human health, along with odd-chain fatty acids and many, many other nutrients that occur in dairy. It's a health food. If you look at the studies in humans, dairy fat consistently and strongly associates with health outcomes that are positive in humans. So I would argue there's good evidence that dairy is healthy for humans. Even though we're not cows, and even though milk is for babies, it seems to be quite healthy for us as humans, and I would miss it if it weren't in my own diet. I don't think everyone needs to do it, but I think it's a beautiful, delicious thing that adds a lot of variety and unique nutrients to my diet. And if you're not thinking about a calcium-phosphorus balance in your diet, you're leaving money on the table in terms of your overall health. You cannot just eat meat without balancing it with calcium. Calcium phosphorus balance is important, just like zinc and copper balance is important. And we can talk about that too. A lot of the minerals need to be balanced. There are other ways to get calcium without doing dairy, whether you're doing bone meal or other things, but generally, I think dairy is one of the easiest ways to get calcium. Most people drank raw milk up until the late 1800s. When people moved into cities, they wanted milk, and raw milk caused a lot of sickness in the early 1900s because it wasn't being produced properly. Cows were being milked in subsanitary conditions and fed spent grains of alcohol fermentation, which is called swill. That's where the term swill came from historically. And so people were getting sick. So pasteurization had a place and was very effective. And I think that over time, we've just never been able to go back to the raw milk, even though we have the resources in place now and we understand the potential sources of contamination much better. Our understanding of microbiology is much more advanced than it was 120 years ago. So it's possible. And I think it has unique benefits for humans. And not everyone can even tolerate raw milk. I was having dinner with a friend the other night, and he said his acne gets worse even when he has raw milk. So okay, it doesn't work for everyone. I don't have any issues with acne with raw milk, and I really like it. And I know a lot of people that really benefit from raw milk in their life. And I've seen a lot of kids benefit from raw milk when their parents make that decision. So it's an interesting thing, and I think it's incorrectly vilified now without the whole story.
Talk to the homogenization piece, because this is less often talked about. And the way I understand it, it's a mechanical process that they put the milk through just so it doesn't separate.
Yeah.
So is that something that by default, when you're buying raw milk, it'll be unhomogenized?
Yeah.
And is that something that's important to you?
Oh, it's really important. I mean, if you've ever seen a raw milk with cream on top, it's delicious. I'll gently shake the milk unless you want to eat the cream off the top. But I was just in California at a grocery store, and you can get cream on top milk. I think definitely you don't want to drink homogenized milk. Whether or not it actually is harmful to homogenize is questionable, but I think milk is just more delicious when the cream rises to the top and you get to shake it. Like I don't know, like the process of homogenization is not necessary for milk. Cream on top is much better.